shoes, everything she says is true. If you don't know now, you know. All you ever gotta say is heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that. Look, all you ever gotta say.
What's up, Heard That Nation? Listening in the United States and around the world, you are now listening to the Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast. If you happen to be watching right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you stay in the know of every new episode and every guest that I have on the show. I was on a little mini vacation. I had to come back for a couple of reasons, but it was pretty nice. I had a staycation. It wasn't anything extravagant because, you know, from time to time, you got to have moments to yourself where you get to go and enjoy things that you do. And kind of the way it wasn't a vacation because so many things have been happening with, you know, different events on sports and everything else. I think the last show that I dropped, it was right before the NCAA tournaments, the men's and the women's. And so you had LSU winning their national championship, but, you know, the whole big to-do was the whole Tony Yayo, aka John Cena hand gesture that was nonstop talked about, and I talked about it weeks ago on my Instagram live. It was Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark from Iowa, and I can't wait for these ladies to return back to their teams because it's going to be absolutely amazing. You know what the women's tournament is going to be, actually the women's season, because I love that many people are talking about the women's game. 9.9 million viewers watched that game. So I'm looking forward to when college hoop happens to come back again. Congratulations to UConn. Dan Hurley getting his first championship, number 5 for the University of Connecticut. So that was awesome to see. And of course, during the tournament, we saw all kinds of upsets happen. Purdue being the second number 1 seed to get upset by Fairleigh Dickinson. No number 1 seeds literally were in the Elite 8 Final Four in the championship game. So that was pretty exciting to watch all of those tournaments happen. You know, then intertwined with that, you had baseball season that was starting. My Tigers started off a little rough. They're somewhat turning around and getting to the winning side, but we got plenty of games left, so we should see about that. And then you got, you know, the NHL, their season is ending. Red Wings again, not hitting the postseason. And the NBA, then now we're into the playoff process in the play-in. I think the play-in is kind of growing on me. You know, the playoffs are starting, you know, they have now been extended. You got the, you know, the 8, the 9, and the 10 seeds, you know, trying to get into the regular playoffs that we're all used to, and so that's pretty much is going on because those teams that were pretty much on the outside looking in, kind of in a way getting that second chance to go into the playoff series, you know, where you have the best of 7. I found those games pretty exciting. So you know that is being underway and everything. And of course, of all the games that have played, so because now by the time this episode drops, we're going into some of the teams that have concluded their second game or going into game 2. And the other night, the conclusion game 2, and it came on late, and I was fighting sleep. So unfortunately, the game started watching me, but I ended up getting up the next morning and watching it. It was the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors, and this was in at home for Sacramento. And here's the thing that I'll say before we go into the big elephant in the room that everybody in the media has been talking about for the last few hours, and they'll talk about the last few days until game 3 starts to come up, is the Sacramento Kings and how good they really are. And what Mike Brown, who is my coach of the year, I know he was voted on for, you know, with his peers and everything, but he should be unanimously coach of the year. What he has done with this organization and this team that has not won literally anything, and they have had players come and go and some really good players and some stars on their team. They haven't had anything happen since 2006. And I'll double check, and I'll get that double checked to make sure I got the right there year 2006. The hype is real, and if people have been looking, and if you have been, if you went to the game, you know, Good for you. Enjoy the moment, for sure. You know, definitely it was a hard fought game one. And you know, it was right down to literally the last few moments and the last shots that were made, and then going right into game two. But the streets they were packed. They were packed for that game, and I'm excited for that city because they haven't seen their team be so competitive like that. And this is the thing, I want to shout out to the real Sacramento King fans, because you're not the ones that went and, you know, did the highs and the lows and the many years of the lows, you know, when you had the Chris Webbers, when you had Buddy Hields and any other players that came through that organization. You didn't waver away from, you know, turning in your fan card because, you know, during the regular season and, you know, some of the coaches that you had and again, players that you had, you didn't, you know, go and burn your jersey. If you've seen so many of these so-called diehard fans do, and they go and they burn their jersey and they get upset about how their team is not doing good and everything else. But then you get your key pieces together, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, you get rid of Buddy Hield, you start building a team together. You put in a coach like Mike Brown, who is just so good. And, you know, you look at his past track record of other teams that he has coached. And mind you, he was on the staff during the championship run of the Golden State Warriors. So needless to say, you know, he needs to get his just due and his flowers for the amazing coaching that he has done in the past, as well as turning this team around. And so when the seeds were picked, I think the most buzz that was talked about in the postseason, because some of, you know, these teams, you got the Celtics and Hawks and the Cavaliers and Knicks and Suns, Clippers. But I think the biggest thing that people wanted to see is how good the Sacramento Kings really were going to be, or if this was a fluke team. And no other test that you could have but to have your team go against the Golden State Warriors. And so, of course, the Golden State Warriors, they won championships. They have a seasoned team: Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, up-and-coming Jordan Poole, Looney. You're phasing out Andre Iguodala, which you still need to give him credit because he was part of that championship run as well. And so this is the kind of game, and this is the matchup that I was looking forward to. You know, like I said, unfortunately, you know, it came out so late, and so, you know, I missed this one and got up and rewatched it. So I'm rewatching it, and of course, sure enough, it was, you know, competitive like the first. And I thought, and I put on and those that follow me on Facebook, I put on there, I said, you know, this game may end up watching me. So I'm going to put it out there right now. I think the Warriors are going to tie this up. Easy, you know, because they were doing very well in the first half. And, you know, it was back and forth. And I think the Warriors were out at the half. And I was like, all right, you know, I'm fading out, going to bed. I get up and I'm seeing all these messages on my phone. I'm seeing on the post, he's like, Marisa, you were wrong. You know, the Kings took it, blah, blah. They're up 2-0. And I was like, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I went and saw the score. And I'm like, okay, unbeknownst to me, the events that happened in the fourth quarter, which I will get to momentarily. So I go and see that they did go up 2-0. And Domantas Sabonis literally went off 24 points, 8 and 12 from the field. And then just pretty much had the game of his postseason career. And I don't think that he had any, it was close to, actually, let me backtrack a little bit, because I had talked on another program about Domantas Sabonis and how, you know, when he was on the Pacers team, and it was him and Victor Oladipo, and how good he was going to be. It just give him a few years. He's going to be good. Whether he stays on that organization, they build around those two, or he ends up helping out taken to another team, which, you know, current situation, Sacramento Kings. And people were not fully listening to what I was saying. And I was like, if you had your eyes shut during the years that he was at Gonzaga and the run that they had, which they almost made it to the championship the NCAA championship with him on there and the key contributor that he was. I say, give this young man a few years. He's going to be good for someone, and he's going. The fundamentals are there. I mean, everybody talks about his father and his NBA legacy, and in the thing that I always point out was like, yes, you have so many of these young men and their fathers have played in the NBA. We got to separate the two. We can't compare the two because many people are going to think of their standards so high. Arvydas Sabonis was an element in his own path in the NBA. Domantas Sabonis is forging his path in the NBA, and it happened to be the perfect landing spot, which is the Sacramento Kings. And with him and De'Aaron Fox, this team is if not, and I dare to say this, it is going to be, if they get past the Warriors, they're going to be a problem, and probably, and I'm going to go for it, could possibly go to the NBA championship, and that would be huge for the city of Sacramento. So y'all are going to probably blow up the DMs, and you leave messages like, oh my gosh, you're basing this off of 2 games, they're up 2-0. They're going to the Warriors. Yes, there's tons of games left. I get all that, which leads me to this point right here. There's 7 minutes, a little around 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And Sabonis is getting beat up in this game. Like, if he's not getting hit, he's getting thigh hit, he's getting hit in the head, he's getting, elbowed and everything else. I mean, you can look on one of his shoulders and it's just like, they are just hacking him underneath that net. And so there's a part in the game with almost 7 minutes left where the Warriors have the ball, they go for it, and Sabonis is literally dropped to the ground, and Draymond Green is right there, and you can look at the tape and see and make your own assessment. Sabonis says he was protecting his face and everything, and so he had a hold of Draymond Green's ankle, to which Draymond Green, literally released it real hard, and he stomped his foot on Sabonis' chest until, Sabonis flipped over in pain. We don't know the length of how hard he was stomped on. You could see Sabonis grimacing on the court. And they gave Sabonis a technical. They gave Draymond a flagrant 2. Draymond's ejected. On the way out, hyping up the Boo Birds there in Sacramento, and putting the hand to his ear, loving the boos that are coming out and everything else. And you can hear on both sides at the end of the game. Like I said, the Kings are up 2-0. Draymond said, like, listen, he had my foot. He had his whole entire, his arms, his hands are around my ankle.
Draymond, can you just walk us through what happened there?
My leg got grabbed. Second time in 2 nights. Referees just watch it. I got to land my foot somewhere. And I'm not the most flexible person, so it's not stretching that far.
So you didn't really see where you were stepping? You just kind of...
I can only step so far. I'm pulling my leg away, so.
I can't. Like he even said he was an inflexible person. He goes, there was so much that he can move to. Now, you can look at the past of different times that Draymond has gotten, quote unquote, flexible, if you will. He says he's not, but a few games ago, the one I can recall is when they played again versus Steven Adams, and I can't recall off the top of my head what team he was at the time, where Draymond grazed. If he wants to say he's not flexible, we'll say grazed the man region of Steven Adams. And Steven Adams literally bent over and dropped to his knees, flagrant on Draymond Green. I come from a generation where physical basketball is what I grew up with. I'm a 70s girl, raised in the 80s. So you had a physical Lakers, a physical Boston Celtics. I can remember Michael Cooper getting into fights. I can remember, you can go to most recently, but not so recent, the Malice at the Palace.
Game tonight. Then Wallace is fouled, and Wallace right on our chest. This has potential to be serious if they don't get the 20. Wallace upset. Players trying to hold each other off. Steven Jackson and Rasheed Wallace trying to be peacemakers. Now Jackson yelling. Wallace still going at the pace of bench to go. Now Artest has jumped over the scorer's table and is trying to get down to the bench. Artest is in the stands. A look in his eye that's very scary right now. Maybe you could call it a hard foul at best. Has turned into just an ugly scene.
Because every time that I wear a Detroit Pistons shirt, which I'm rocking on right now, people are like, oh, Detroit, you're a Detroit Pistons fan. I remember Malice at the Palace. I don't remember anything great that happened with the team. Don't remember Zeke or, the championships that we had. We had literally, Rick Mahorn was on that team, didn't take no stuff. We had Bill Laimbeer on the team that didn't take no stuff. Our team was physical, it was tough. Many teams that were in during that time was tough. And Draymond Green is that person that can box you out under that net. He's physical. He's always been physical. If you followed him during the time of Michigan State, he has that. He plays physical underneath the net with no apologies, so that you're not going to get that from him. He's not going to be soft underneath that net. He's going to do whatever he can to will his team to win. And so when that whole thing happened, he got ejected. Sabonis gets the technical. So I looked at that, and while I was watching it, I watched the game and I concluded that. Then I, scrolled back to watch it. And then now you're looking at game 3, where the question is Draymond Green going to be suspended for that game? I don't think he should be. I don't think he should be. It would be a disservice. And of course, all this stuff is, with Commissioner Adam Silver several rows up, and again, with the whole Draymond egging on the crowd and the boobers and all that. And of course, the cameras go right to Silver, and he's, pointing and looking at all this other stuff and probably making mental notes on how much fines that Draymond is going to, have to pay, which he's used to, okay? Because he's gotten fined before many a times. But you look at some of these players that have been physical. Hello, Grayson Allen, who's been like that since Duke. A knee to the groin to almost every opponent that has been. And I look at that, and I was looking at the comments, and this is why I came on here and I wanted to talk about this, and I didn't want to wait till, the show returned in a week. And I looked at the comments, I was, looking at people's reactions, and they would, oh my gosh, Green is at it again. He's a thug. He's out of control. He needs to retire. He's done all of this stuff and everything else. And Draymond Green, the thing that's so smart about them, he'll beat you to the punch. So he leaves the court. They ask him about it. He talks about it. He says, my leg was wrapped up. I'm not, that guy that's going to, I can't stretch that, far. There's so much that I can go with the area that I'm in. And, he wrapped my foot up, and then going into one of the shows that I was watching this morning, he said that he's gotten soreness in that ankle that was wrapped up by Sabonis, and he wanted x-rays to make sure that it was all good. Call him petty, call him, whatever he wants. He's used to it. He doesn't care about it. But after the game, what does he do? He goes on his podcast and he talks about it. So I'm going to let the media have the upper hand and all that. And of course, at the end, when Sabonis was done getting dressed and everything else, the media is right there and asking him about it. And I think that the brilliant thing about Sabonis is that he just kept talking about the team, how physical it is. They knew that this team was going to be physical and everything else. And any kind of angle, the way that the media was trying to ask him about, do you think that you wrapping up Draymond's ankle was, fair? Did you see what happened, that he was egging on the crowd and everything else? And he went right back to, we had to get the team together and conclude this game and everything else. So you wasn't going to get, any kind of different answer out of him. He was focusing on the team, what they had to do, him making it through, and how much of a injury that he has near the sternum and ribs area. The reports are out there that he was getting x-rays as well. So we don't know what the status is, but I'm sure 90% of, it's a 90% chance he's going to be in the game, depending on what's going on with that. So I'm hoping that Draymond does not get suspended. I mean, it's game 3. He needs to be in this game. This is a very physical game. Many people have said this was going to be a physical game because of the fact of the Warriors is that team, and Draymond is that guy that reminds me so much of the basketball that I grew up watching, where you go back and you pull up footage, and those that are near my age bracket in the 40s and the late 30s, 40s, 50s, exactly what I'm talking about with the teams that I had listed: the Lakers, the Pistons, the Celtics. It just an elbow to the head. I mean, you weren't ejected. Literally WWE type clothesline type stuff. You didn't see players get ejected. So you saw all that, and he is that person that's going to box you out and be physical underneath the net. So they have a decision to make. There's a few days in between where it's going to be game 3. Again, it's going to be at the Warriors. They're in a hole right now. This is a unusual spot for the Warriors to be in, down 2-0. But this is a Kings team that needs to be respected. They need to be talked about. Mike Brown is the coach of the year, in my opinion. And we'll see. It's an amazing run. We'll see how the Warriors will respond. For people, side note, before I move on to the next topic, that keeps calling them old, this team has been Stephen and Clay and Draymond have been in this league for a very long time. These gentlemen are not even in their mid-30s, and everybody wants to write them off like they are just, going out to pasture and everything else. They had battled through injuries. I mean, Clay, 2 straight years of ACL tears. Draymond has his share of injuries. Steph literally is bandaged up. If you see him in game 2, where he landed wrong, he was hobbling, I want to say in the first or second quarter, it just kept running up and down, and they were wanting to pull him out. He didn't even make eye contact with Steve Kerr. He wanted to stay in that game. So basically, you got the walking wounded that is going into game 3 that need to figure out a plan so they do not go into an 0-3 hole, which we haven't seen in a long time out of this team that has won 4 rings under Steve Kerr. So it's going to be an interesting watch, as well as the rest of the games. Seeing how KD and the Suns are going to respond to the Clippers, and they're at home. The Knicks Cavaliers series is pretty good, but just keeping my eye on what the powers that be are going to do with Draymond Green. I hope they do not suspend him. I mean, they need to keep him in there and just let these 2 teams play and do what they do. So, but going from that into a couple of good news that happened. Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, secured the bag. This guy is getting doggone paid. And he deserves it. My husband and I got into a debate about this, if he deserved the entire bag or not. And I said yes. He said no, because he's like, he still has so much to prove. And I'm like, he literally did prove. He took the team to the Super Bowl last year / this year, and unfortunately Kansas City was just too good, and Patrick Mahomes was just too good. But he got a 5-year, $255 million year deal. 180, almost close to 180. It's like 179.5, 6, 7, but let's just round it up to 180 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid player on an annual basis in NFL history. Jalen Hurts, you deserve it, period. End of story. Good for you. Congratulations. I have said on not only this show, but the other show that I do, Death, Taxes, and Sports podcast that comes on Tuesday nights. We're on hiatus right now until May, that they will return to the Super Bowl again. Expect them to be in the Super Bowl again, and they will win a championship. They are getting some key pieces together. I'm looking forward to the draft that's coming next week and seeing what they're going to do with it, as well as AKA the Lions. I'm excited about what's going to happen, and that I'm excited, and your girl is going to be there next year. You can book that. Next year, NFL draft is in Detroit, Michigan next year. I'm very excited to travel back home and check out the NFL draft. I cannot wait for that to happen. But my boys are going to be doing some amazing things. this season coming up. I cannot wait for Dan Campbell and the crew, what they're going to do with my amazing Detroit Lions. I'm going to talk about them, and I'm going to talk about them a lot. And I'm looking forward to going to a couple of games and doing this show on the road. So I'm looking forward to that. And before I end and go back to my little hiatus on here, because I definitely will be back next week, unless something happens, breaking news such as, LSU, the women's basketball team going to the White House. I'll go into full conversation about that, but I definitely want to talk about that and how that visit will be, because all of y'all have been following the story about Angel Reese, how she was treated versus Caitlin Clark, how she was treated, and Jill Biden pretty much open mouth, insert foot, as far as trying to invite both teams to the White House. And Angel Reese was saying she wasn't going to go, but now the LSU team is going to go, and how that visit is going to be. So I'm going to talk about that for sure. But I wanted to end on great, amazing news coming out of Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills camp, and that is the return of Damar Hamlin. Safety Damar Hamlin has now gotten the okay to return to full football activities since going into cardiac arrest early January, when literally all of us that were watching that game, our hearts had literally stopped in prayers and everything for that young man. And now he has gotten the okay to go back to full football activity. So welcome back, number 3, to the NFL and to Bills Mafia, and looking forward to seeing him back to his position this season coming up. I'm so happy for him and everything that has happened to him since this whole entire journey. But literally, that man is a walking miracle. So good for him, and good for football, good for Bills Mafia. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Again, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast, as well as sign up for All Things Amazing. I don't want to brag on myself, but I'm going to brag on myself. All Things Amazing at Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast. And as I always end the show, take care, stay safe. Your girl's out of here.